the uncomfortable truth. Have you ever asked yourself why certain people enter your life and it feels as if they were summoned by some unseen law of inevitability? You meet them, feel an almost magnetic pull, and soon find yourself entangled in a dynamic that both excites and destroys you. You call them narcissists, manipulators, energy vampires. Yet beneath those labels hides a deeper pattern that refuses to be silenced. The truth is uncomfortable. Every narcissist that crosses your path is not merely a person. It is a reflection engineered by your unconscious. They are the embodiment of everything you've disowned in yourself. What you call their arrogance may be your repressed confidence. What you call their manipulation may be your forgotten power to shape outcomes. Their vanity, their coldness, their apparent lack of empathy. All these traits act as mirrors, exposing an unseen part of your psyche. Most people stop at bitterness or victimhood. They flee one narcissist only to meet another because they never make the radical discovery that the external abuse mirrors an internal exile. The narcissist is fulfilling a psychic contract to force you to see what you have hidden from consciousness. Until that vision is integrated, the same pattern repeats under new names and faces. Carl Jung warned that every human being carries within them a shadow, the repository of all they cannot admit about themselves. When you deny it, life arranges circumstances and people to play those denied roles. What you refuse to own inwardly, you are condemned to meet outwardly. The narcissist is not your curse. They are your curriculum. And so the question is not, why are they like this? The question is, what part of me required them to arrive? Understanding that answer begins with facing the very aspect of the psyche most of us spend our lives avoiding. Understanding the shadow. The shadow is not an invention of therapy language. It is an archetypal truth. It represents the totality of what consciousness has rejected in order to appear good, moral, or acceptable. Think of your psyche as a vast field of light surrounded by potential untamed darkness. The lighted area is what you know about yourself, your beliefs, your roles, your preferences. Everything that cannot live comfortably in that light is pushed outward into the dark. Jealousy, rage, lust, superiority, but also authority, passion, independence, and dignity. In childhood, this rift begins innocently. You discover which traits earn love and which attract punishment. If you were praised for being gentle but shamed for being assertive, gentleness expands into your conscious identity, while assertiveness is banished into the unconscious. Over years, this banishment forms what Jung called complexes, energetic pockets that carry emotional charge and seek expression. You may forget them, but they never forget you. They appear as intrusive thoughts, dreams, fantasies, attractions, and projections. When the repressed self is denied long enough, it constellates outwardly as fate. That is the essence of Jung's statement. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. The narcissist appears, not because you deserve suffering, but because the psyche demands wholeness. The qualities you buried must return, and the narcissist embodies them in living form, so you cannot ignore the lesson. Notice the symmetry. The empathic person who cannot say no attracts the narcissist who never asks permission. The self-effacing idealist who fears pride attracts the grandiose personality who worships their own reflection. Every partnership is, in truth, a union of conscious persona and unconscious shadow. You are fascinated because you are meeting your lost opposite. But make no mistake, the shadow is not evil by nature. It becomes destructive only when you refuse relationship with it. Ignored, it manipulates your reality from behind the scenes. Embraced, it becomes creative energy. The temper that once frightened you becomes courage. The envy that poisoned you becomes aspiration. The dominance that scared you becomes leadership. integration transforms poison into potency. This is why the narcissistic entanglement is both agony and opportunity. It exposes the edges of your repression. Each moment of humiliation or rage is a flashlight held to a hidden corner of the unconscious. The psyche is saying, "Look here. This is the part of you that needs to wake." To understand the shadow is to accept that morality, as society taught it, is incomplete. Goodness achieved by denial is sterilized goodness. Wholeness, not purity, is the psychological aim. Only by integrating the repressed self do you gain freedom from projection. When you reclaim what you have exiled, others stop carrying it for you. The world calms, not because people changed, but because your gaze is no longer split. That is the foundation. Without that understanding, every confrontation with a narcissist will remain personal and unresolved. But once you see them as a mirror of your repressed self, the pain becomes a portal, the gateway to individuation itself. The narcissist, a container for our rejected traits. The narcissist's presence feels invasive because they are inhabited by the very psychic material you have cast out. They serve as a container, a vessel that holds and displays your rejected traits in such amplified form that you cannot look away. They are, in essence, your unlived impulses given permission to perform. Their excess exposes your restraint. Their callous detachment reveals your dependency. Their self-worship mirrors the self-neglect you sanctified as virtue. Consider what happens when you meet such a person. At first, there is fascination. The narcissist's confidence feels magnetic, almost divine. You are drawn to their certainty because it resonates with the authority you secretly crave. Then, as intimacy grows, the magnetism turns toxic. What once appeared as charisma becomes domination. The very traits that attracted you now injure you. This is the oscillation of projection. First idealization, then demonization. Both polarities emerge from the same unconscious root, your refusal to accept those traits as potentially your own. When the narcissist boasts and you recoil in disgust, ask what is being reflected. Is it possible that your discomfort masks a forbidden pride? Perhaps the child inside you still believes that being visible is dangerous. So, you remain humble to the point of self-erasure, building your moral identity on suppression. In comes the narcissist, burning with self-display. They stage the play your unconscious has written. The emotional charge you feel is the energy of recognition, the psyche realizing what it has been disowning. Jung observed that projection is not a sin. It is a natural process that forces awareness. The unconscious first externalizes what it cannot integrate internally. Only later can you reclaim it. The narcissist, therefore, becomes a living symptom of your spiritual starvation. Their need for admiration exaggerates your buried hunger to be seen. Their entitlement exaggerates your inability to claim what you need. Life pairs such opposites not to punish you, but to balance you. The psychological law of compensation ensures that denied energy finds expression somewhere. During my years of analysis, I have watched many people approach this dynamic with despair. They ask, why do I keep meeting the same type of person? What they rarely see is that psychic evolution requires repetition until understanding occurs. The pattern persists because the energy remains split. The narcissist's charm and cruelty are simply two faces of your rejected fire, one begging to be admired, the other terrified of misuse. Until you bring that fire consciously into your own hands, the unconscious will keep outsourcing it. Let's look closer at how this containment operates. The narcissist endlessly performs superiority to mask their inner void. You, inversely, perform humility to mask your hidden pride. The relationship becomes a closed circuit. Their inflated ego feeds on your deflated one. But both are compensations for the same wounded center, the lost sense of inherent worth. They scream, "I am perfect." You whisper, "I am nothing." The truth lies between those extremes. The encounter exists to show you the falsity of both. This is the moral paradox of projection. What you despise most, sincerely, may be the very medicine your psyche needs. If you can observe the narcissist without moralizing, seeing in their vanity a distorted echo of your own unlived authority, you begin to reclaim the polarity. The trait ceases to command you from across the battlefield. It becomes available for integration. Their selfishness is no longer an offense. It is a signal pointing toward your own unclaimed autonomy. Do not misunderstand me. To recognize your reflection in the narcissist does not mean to excuse abuse. It means to extract the learning before the wound calcifies into bitterness. You can hold accountability and insight at once. The moment you name the projection, the spell weakens. The narcissist's power depends entirely on your unconscious collaboration. Once seen, they lose access to the psychic energy they were borrowing. Integration begins where blame ends. When you stop defining yourself as their opposite, you remove the charge that binds you. Awareness dissolves identification. The narcissist remains who they are, but their role in your mythos collapses. You no longer need them to perform your shadow. You have claimed it. And in that quiet reclamation, something extraordinary happens. The very traits you thought were corrupt become the foundation of inner authority. Selfishness becomes self-respect. Pride becomes dignity. Desire becomes direction. The narcissist, emptied of borrowed meaning, fades from central importance. What was once a painful mirror becomes a closed chapter of education. The psyche has harvested its projection and restored its energy to the self. What remains is not revenge, but proportion. The calm strength that comes from seeing the whole of yourself and needing no enemy to prove it. The mechanics of projection. Why we are triggered. Projection is the psyche's way of looking into a mirror without realizing it. It disguises inner material as outer conflict. When you are triggered by the narcissist, what you feel is not truly about them. It is the collision between your conscious identity and the trait you have disowned. The person before you merely activates it. The wound already existed. Their behavior functions as a psychological key that unlocks it. Notice how every trigger has a texture: rage, disgust, resentment, fascination. Each emotion pinpoints a suppressed energy. Rage usually hides power that has been denied. Disgust conceals repressed desire. Resentment covers envy or ambition that has not found expression. Fascination masks identification with qualities you secretly admire, but believe are forbidden. The unconscious uses emotion as alarm. The louder the emotion, the more urgent the call to integration. Think about the moment when the narcissist ignores your boundaries. You feel violated, enraged, humiliated. Yet beneath the surface reaction, there lies a deeper meaning. You are witnessing an aspect of yourself that never learned how to defend its perimeter. The narcissist's intrusion is an externalized version of your own self-neglect. The lesson is not moral outrage, it is realization. The psyche is saying, see where you have failed to guard your own territory. The same mechanism applies to admiration. If you find yourself hypnotized by a person's confidence or effortless charisma, pause before labeling it mere attraction. You are viewing a fragment of your unlived potential. The narcissist's aura of certainty provokes awe because it mirrors your hidden competence. What irritates you later, the same confidence turning into arrogance, is the shadow side of the same energy. The psyche swings between worship and contempt until consciousness reclaims the projection. Carl Jung wrote that everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. The narcissist embodies that blackness for you. They dramatize the content your moral self refuses to bear. Every grand gesture of entitlement, every manipulative twist, dramatizes a possibility you renounced. Instead of integrating that possibility, learning how to wield power responsibly, you reject it wholesale. The psyche then finds someone willing to perform it. That is projection in motion. From a developmental perspective, projection keeps the ego intact while it matures. It is a protective reflex. When the child cannot handle the aggression, sexual energy, or pride arising within, those energies are disowned so that the self-image of goodness survives. In adulthood, these disowned qualities seek return. They re-enter awareness through romantic partners, colleagues, leaders. The narcissist becomes the stage on which your denied potency acts without your permission. You remain both spectator and victim until awareness interrupts the play. Why then are we so easily triggered by this particular archetype? Because narcissism violates the moral structure you depend on. It exposes how conditional your goodness truly is. When the narcissist boasts, takes space, or demands admiration, your inner law of humility feels desecrated. The psyche trembles because the boundary between good and bad, constructed since childhood, is being questioned. Each trigger threatens that psychic order. It is not just an emotional reaction, it is a metaphysical tremor. Triggers also serve a rhythmic purpose. They surface precisely when consciousness is ready to expand. If the narcissist's arrogance infuriates you today, it means a suppressed longing for self-expression is approaching critical mass. The unconscious sends the narcissist as catalyst. You can either project again, declaring them the problem, or turn inward and ask, what capacity in me is begging to be lived consciously rather than unconsciously through them? That question converts reaction into revelation. You may notice that triggers operate like echoes. After an encounter, long after the narcissist has left, your mind replays the scene, altering lines, imagining what you could have said. These internal rehearsals are attempts at psychic completion. The self wants to reclaim the energy that was lost in projection. Every mental replay is the soul's effort to rewrite the script with awareness. Instead of dismissing these loops, examine them. Ask, what power did I give away in that moment? When you name it, the loop begins to dissolve. The way to break the cycle is not by suppressing triggers, but by decoding them. Each trigger contains instructional data. It tells you which part of the self requires integration. If you feel dismissed, integrate your right to assert presence. If you feel envied or controlled, integrate your authority. If you feel unseen, integrate the inner witness who can see you first. Triggers, then, are not punishments. They are psychic disclosures. They mark the edge of your current self-knowledge. This is why silence after confrontation with a narcissist feels unbearable. When the external drama ends, projection has nowhere to go. The withdrawn energy rushes back toward you, demanding to be processed. Many describe this as emptiness or withdrawal, but psychologically it is repatriation, the return of your own disowned vitality. Endure that silence. It is not absence, it is reintegration. Ultimately, the mechanics of projection reveal that every trigger is a messenger. The narcissist's behavior is noise, but the content of your emotional response is signal. If you follow that signal inward, you will reach the exact fragment of self that demands recognition. Each recovered fragment restores proportion. The world becomes less threatening because you are no longer scattering your energy into it. What once appeared as an external tyrant transforms into a coded invitation. Take back what you have projected, and the trigger will release its hold forever. Beyond the negative. Projecting unclaimed power. When people first hear that the narcissist mirrors their shadow, they imagine this means they share the narcissist's cruelty or deceit. That is a misunderstanding born from moral thinking. Projection is not exclusively negative. It also contains everything noble that you have been too frightened to embody. Most of what you call dark is simply disowned light, strength that was shamed, authority that was restrained, brilliance that was dimmed to please others. The narcissist often represents not only what you fear to become, but what you secretly wish you had the courage to be. Look closely at the traits that inspire both repulsion and awe. Their certainty in speaking, their refusal to apologize for existing, their sense of destiny. These are distorted forms of healthy power. You were conditioned to regard such traits as arrogance, so you amputated them from your personality. Yet the psyche never forgets its original wholeness. Disowned power must find somewhere to manifest. It does so through projection, animating figures who live the confidence you suppressed. Their grandiosity offends you precisely because it also fascinates you. Beneath the judgment lies envy, and beneath the envy, potential. This kind of projection is subtle. You do not notice it because it feels like reverence or attraction rather than hostility. The charismatic leader, the magnetic artist, the partner who dominates every room, each calls forth a piece of your own unexpressed authority. You stand in their orbit because, without realizing it, you are studying your own unlived pattern. The lesson is not to destroy them or worship them, but to recognize, this capacity belongs to me as well. Reclaiming unclaimed power begins with dismantling inherited guilt. Many were taught that visibility equals vanity, that self-trust is pride, that ambition corrupts spirituality. Such teachings produce an inner split where power must masquerade as modesty. But modesty built on repression turns into resentment. The longer you deny your potency, the louder your environment becomes with people who flaunt theirs. The narcissist's dominance functions as a cosmic irritant designed to awaken your sleeping lion. Their exaggeration shows you what unapologetic energy looks like, even in distortion. Owning this recognition changes everything. Instead of labeling every confident person narcissistic, you begin evaluating the quality of their power. Does it come from inflation or integration? Integrated power moves without demanding submission. It radiates rather than consumes. Inflated power must steal light to exist. The task is not to become like the narcissist, but to reclaim the self-possession that prevents exploitation. When you hold your energy consciously, others can neither steal it nor need to perform it for you. Consider how your life rearranges when this occurs. You speak directly instead of hinting. You state boundaries without apology. You no longer seek permission to shine or shrink in fear of being resented. The very people who once unbalanced you lose their hold because you have inherited the power they once carried on your behalf. The projection circuit is broken. What was outer drama transforms into inner alignment. This is what Jung meant when he said, "Where love rules, there is no will to power, and where power predominates, love is lacking." Integration unites the two. Genuine love includes the will to exist fully. Genuine power includes the capacity to love without domination. When you embody both, you cease manifesting opponents. The narcissist vanishes, not through their defeat, but through your completion. The journey beyond the negative is therefore the turning point. You stop seeing your reflection in extremes of evil or divinity and start perceiving it as energy awaiting direction. The shadow is not a swamp to purge, but a reservoir to tap. Once you drink from it consciously, life no longer needs to send mirrors to remind you who you are. Boundaries replace battles, respect replaces idolization, and the lesson of projection concludes where genuine sovereignty begins. the cycle of refusal, codependency, and victimhood. The narcissistic dynamic cannot survive without its counterpart, the codependent. These two are not opposites, but polarities of the same psychic split. One inflates the self to God status, the other deflates it to servant. Both are entangled in the same refusal, the refusal to stand in authentic power. The narcissist refuses humility, the codependent refuses sovereignty. The relationship thrives on this mutual denial. When you play the empath, you imagine yourself as pure, selfless, endlessly understanding. You believe giving without limit proves love, yet beneath that generosity hides terror. Terror of abandonment, of conflict, of being disliked. The narcissist senses this terror instinctively. They orbit such people because the unclaimed fear provides their fuel. Each boundary you hesitate to enforce becomes a doorway through which they feed. The more you offer, the more they take, and the more righteous you feel about your sacrifices. The identity of the victim secretly flatters the moral ego. You are suffering, therefore you must be good. But codependency is not love, it is disguised control. The empath gives in order to be needed, not in order to be known. You please to avoid the confrontation that would expose your own desires. The narcissist, in return, performs dominance to conceal dependence. Together, you form the perfect loop, one suppressing will, the other exaggerating it, both terrified of authentic equality. The psyche ensures balance through opposition. Until one party claims full responsibility for their energy, the cycle repeats. Think of this interplay as psychic barter. The codependent provides adoration and compliance in exchange for borrowed purpose. The narcissist provides direction and intensity in exchange for admiration. When either withdraws, the other collapses. This dependence masquerades as devotion, but underneath lies a shared unconscious argument. I cannot exist without your reflection. The narcissist demands it with rage. The empath offers it with tears. Both refuse solitude because solitude would reveal the hollowness beneath the performance. From a Jungian lens, this pattern reveals an incomplete individuation. The codependent has not yet separated from the parental archetype. They still seek external authority to define value. The narcissist has inflated that same archetype, playing God instead of seeking one. The collision of these two forms the alchemical vessel of transformation. It burns because both psyches are attempting to correct years of repression through each other. The pain is proportionate to the magnitude of what must be integrated. Notice how victimhood sustains the ego as effectively as grandiosity. The narcissist says, "I am superior." The victim says, "I am blameless." Both statements protect identification. If you are blameless, you never have to face the shadow of your complicity, how your silence, insecurity, or hunger for validation kept the pattern alive. True healing begins the moment you surrender this innocence, the moment you admit, I participated in my own oppression because it kept me safe from independence. That confession breaks the enchantment. The subconscious bargain often originates in childhood. The empath learned love meant serving a parent's emotional needs. The narcissist learned survival meant commanding attention at any cost. As adults, they reenact that early theatre, each hoping the other will finally provide what the original figures could not. But the psyche never grants resolution through repetition. It insists on consciousness instead. The only genuine closure is awakening, seeing the psychological contract for what it is and declining to renew it. To exit the cycle, you must dismantle the fantasy of rescue. The belief that your suffering will earn redemption is a projection of the abandoned child. No amount of pleasing will reparent you. Only the inner adult can. This requires reclaiming agency piece by piece, deciding what you need, stating it aloud, tolerating disapproval. Every no you speak demagnifies the narcissist's control. Every boundary you hold rewires the internal narrative from helplessness to authorship. Understand that codependency is not cured through distance alone. You may leave the narcissist and still live by their logic, still shape your behavior around others' moods, still equate peace with avoidance. Healing demands learning how to disappoint with integrity. When your nervous system no longer interprets others' displeasure as danger, the psychic link finally dissolves. The projection returns home, and the dynamic ends not with revenge, but with indifference. In this reclaimed state, compassion becomes clean. You help because you choose to, not because you fear rejection. You love without debt, give without resentment, and receive without guilt. The narcissist, deprived of your unconscious energy, appears suddenly small, even pitiable. Their performance loses the hypnotic pull it once had. You recognize it as rehearsal for your own awakening. The codependent has transformed from mirror to sovereign. The refusal is over, and with it, the endless cycle of self-betrayal. Integration. Reclaiming the shadow and breaking the pattern. Integration is not a poetic ideal, it is labor. It is the slow, deliberate act of reclaiming what you have disowned and metabolizing the psychic heat it once carried. To integrate the shadow is to stand in the very fire that previously consumed you and realize it cannot burn what is now conscious. The first step is always recognition, identifying the trait you demonized in others and naming where it lives within you. Not intellectually, but viscerally. Where in your body does pride live? Where does envy vibrate? Where does the hunger for admiration hide? These sensations mark the frontier of reintegration. The moment you locate these energies, the ego will resist. It will insist that awareness equals endorsement. It will call the shadow dangerous, sinful, unspiritual. But the truth is this: repression is what breeds pathology. Awareness by itself redeems. To see your cruelty is to stop acting it out unconsciously. To see your envy is to reclaim your desire. To see your narcissistic tendencies is to reclaim the permission to exist without apology. Integration replaces performance with proportion. You no longer need others to carry your extremes. Begin with observation in daily life. Each time someone provokes you, pause before judgment and whisper internally, "What part of me is shown here?" This question alone can dismantle entire decades of projection. You will notice recurring figures: the manipulator, the critic, the seducer. Do not exile them again. Invite them inward like estranged family members returning home. Ask each one what it wanted to protect in you. Rage protected your boundaries. Pride protected your worth. Control protected your safety. Gratitude disarms their hostility. Curiosity transforms their energy into insight. Integration also requires differentiation. You must learn the difference between shadow content and authentic self. The narcissist mirrors your disowned power, but that does not mean you should mimic their behavior. Their arrogance is inflated power. Yours, when reclaimed, is grounded strength. Picture it like electricity. In the narcissist, it arcs wildly, burning everything it touches. In the integrated self, it flows through insulated channels, illuminating rather than destroying. The work is not to extinguish power, but to civilize it through consciousness. Practically, this means reauthoring your boundaries. Where the codependent once said yes out of fear, the integrated self says no from conviction. Each boundary declared without anger rewires the nervous system to associate autonomy with safety, not danger. Over time, this creates the internal structure that narcissistic entanglements once simulated externally. You become the authority you once sought. The need for external validation diminishes because your energy circulates within rather than leaking out for approval. Consider the exercise of conscious selfishness. For 1 week, Act in your own interest without justification. Rest when tired. Decline when unwilling. Speak truth when silence would cost integrity. You will feel guilt. That is the withdrawal symptom of moral dependency. Persist until the guilt mutates into calm. What emerges is ethical self-trust, the capacity to act from inner law rather than external permission. This is individuation in microcosm, the ego aligning with the self rather than with collective expectation. Dreams often reveal progress. As integration unfolds, figures that once tormented you begin to change character. The aggressor becomes guide, the pursuer becomes ally. These metamorphoses signify that psychic energy has returned to its rightful owner. What was externalized as fate reappears internally as function. The narcissist disappears not because you defeated them, but because they are no longer required to represent your disowned qualities. The psyche, having reclaimed its lost fragments, stops projecting dramas into the world. Breaking the pattern also demands confronting dependency on suffering. Many unconsciously equate intensity with meaning. The chaos of a narcissistic bond felt vivid, textured, alive. Peace, by contrast, feels dull at first. This boredom is detox. It means your nervous system is learning stability after years of adrenaline. Hold steady through it. Soon the quiet reveals depth, less stimulation, more presence. Life ceases to be a series of compensatory highs and lows and becomes a steady current of awareness. You will notice subtle miracles. Conversations that once spiraled now end with honesty. Manipulative people lose their magnetism. Decisions arise without torment. This is what wholeness looks like. Not eternal serenity, but reduced distortion. The shadow still speaks, but now it speaks through intuition rather than chaos. You sense when to act, when to retreat, when to defend, when to forgive. The same energy that once manifested as trauma becomes discernment. This is the alchemy Jung described, turning lead into gold, unconscious compulsion into deliberate creation. Ultimately, integration redefines love. Love is no longer fusion nor sacrifice. It is recognition of shared complexity. You can hold another's darkness without panic because you have met your own. Empathy becomes strength instead of surrender. You no longer mistake manipulation for intimacy or projection for destiny. The pattern ends where awareness begins, when both light and shadow serve the same master. Conscious presence. Conclusion. The path to wholeness. Wholeness does not mean virtue, it means magnitude. It means standing in the total field of your being without denial. The path begins when you stop hunting monsters and realize that evil, arrogance, and beauty all reside within the same psyche. What you called the narcissist was never outside you. It was the disowned God, the unacknowledged fire, the part of you that refused smallness. Integration is the act of bowing to that fire without letting it rule. The final liberation arrives not in one grand epiphany, but in countless small completions. Every moment you choose awareness over reaction, accountability over blame, solitude over chasing validation. Each choice reclaims a fragment of power. Gradually, the mirror shatters. You no longer need life to echo your wounds. Synchronicity evolves from painful confrontation to graceful alignment, where outer events mirror inner coherence. Carl Jung once said that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. To reach that privilege, you must pass through the valley of mirrors, confront every reflection with honesty, and retrieve your light from each distortion. When the projection ends, so does the war. What remains is quiet sovereignty, the knowledge that nothing outside you can complete or define you. You carry both shadow and sun in equal measure, and therefore you fear neither. Now tell me, Are you ready to stop analyzing the mirror and start walking through it? The next step awaits: the continuation of your own becoming.